Abduction, Chapter 36. Making our way out of the castle did not take long. Aside from the door being broken, we tried to leave everything the way it was before we broke in. The door to Lubart's castle was closed and locked. The keychain was placed where I found it, near the entrance and covered in snow. We all hoped that a worker at the castle would find them in the morning and everything would be forgotten about in a few days. By then, of course, the four of us would be long gone, and none of us would be suspected of any wrongdoing. We hoped. Natasha was still getting used to walking again and held on to me like I was her one and only lifeline to keep her from sinking. I could only imagine the hell she went through, even though she was only held captive for just over a day. We walked arm in arm while Valeria and John walked ahead to retrieve the car. Natasha was in no shape to quickly walk the distance to where our car was parked. She was still traumatized from being held against her will, but she felt safe. "Do you know who kidnapped you?" I asked in a soft voice. Natasha shook her head. I did not see who they were. "So were there more than one person?" I muttered. Natasha nodded. "I heard three voices while I was blindfolded." "Were the three people all men?" I asked. Natasha shook her head and, with no hesitation, said, "There was one woman. She was the one giving orders on what to do with me. She was the one that took my cell phone while the others tied me up." Natasha and I reached the end of the walkway as our car pulled up to the curb. John was driving, and Valeria was in the passenger seat. Valeria attempted to get out of the car, intending to open the door for Natasha. I waved him off and opened the door myself. After helping Natasha into the car, I got onto the other side. We drove off in the direction of the cafe. "Can we get something to eat?" asked Natasha. "I haven't eaten, and I'm hungry." Valeria said something in Ukrainian that made Natasha laugh. It was good to hear her in good spirits after the ordeal she went through. Her laughter warmed to my heart. As I sat in my seat and looking out the window, Natasha moved over and hooked her arm through mine, then laid her head on my shoulder. Even though my heart was taken by my girlfriend Echo, I would not deny Natasha the chance at comfort and feeling safe after her ordeal. I wonder what John thought as he drove down the street. He had been a playboy for years and denying any one girl to tie him down. That was until I introduced him to Yuliana, his Belarusian fiancée. His life changed from that moment on. The sign of the cafe shined like a beacon of hope. Natasha was hungry, but I too was famished, as neither John nor I had eaten dinner. I would think Valeria was in the same way. Valeria opened Natasha's door and helped her out this time, but she refused to take his arm. She waited for me. Valeria wasn't upset by this and shrugged, then walked toward the cafe's front door with a smile on his face. Even John seemed amused by Natasha's behavior. Once inside the cafe, the warmth was a welcome hug. It would be good to sit down to an excellent dinner to warm up my body. I was also curious to hear the rest of Natasha's story. "Go ahead and order drinks," said Valeria. "I will see if our phones are charged enough to be able to make some phone calls." Natasha sat next to me, while John sat opposite me. As we were the only one of two groups in the cafe, the waitress was over to our table faster than I anticipated. She placed menus in front of each of us and waited for us to order drinks. Natasha did the speaking. I ordered an Americano, as did John, while Natasha would have something more substantial, a mixed drink. Valeria would have to fend for himself and order his drink when the waitress returned. "So how did you end up getting kidnapped?" I asked softly. Natasha held herself with her arms across her body. "I received a phone call from Ilya the day before that he wanted to talk. I agreed and said I could meet him for a short time while I got lunch for the staff at the sporting club. I never saw Ilya. He never came. As I walked back to the cafe, I was grabbed by two men and pushed into the delivery van. I was so scared. I put my arm around Natasha to comfort her. I didn't have the heart to tell her that Ilya was dead, shot in the head." Valeria returned before the waitress did with our drinks. He handed out our cell phones. Valeria was the first to make a call, and I was happy with this as I needed some caffeine in my system. My wait was not long as the waitress brought our drinks, as Valeria searched through his address book to find Maxim's name. The coffee was great and warmed me to my bones. Thankfully, the waitress was astute enough to recognize John and me were foreigners and took the local menus and brought us English menus. I would have to tip her well for this observation. "Yes, let me talk with Maxim," said Valeria as he spoke into his phone. I waited with apprehension, as I had it in my mind that Maxim would not be released from the police custody, no matter how much pull he had. The young man was murdered, and he was the main suspect. "Hello," said Valeria. "Maxim, we have found Natasha. She was here with Richard and me. She is well." I felt relieved that Maxim was free and not sitting in a cold jail cell. It didn't mean he wasn't still a suspect, but at least he could be home and would rest in a comfortable bed at night. "Okay, I will bring her to you," said Valeria. "First we'll eat. Natasha's not eaten since the day before." Okay, I will see you there. Goodbye. Is Maxim at home? I asked. Natasha leaned forward, but was still seated very close to me. I felt her flinch when Valery repeated Maxim's words to bring her to him. I wanted to know what that was all about. I wasn't going to put Natasha in danger. Maxim was not above suspicion in my eyes, yet. His home is under tight security, said Valery. His brother-in-law let him return home, but is still under suspicion for killing Ilya. Natasha's eyes got big as saucers. She clutched my hand and squeezed. Ilya is dead? Richard did not tell you? Asked Valery. Natasha turned her accusatory gaze at me. How come you did not tell me while we were walking? Didn't want to shock you so soon after rescuing you, I said. I wanted to tell you a little later when you had a chance to recover. Natasha calmed. I see. She lessened her grip on my hand, which I was grateful for as the blood could flow back into my fingers. Why does Maxim want me at his place? I want to stay near Richard, said Natasha. He has his armed guards and feels he can protect you until your kidnappers have been caught, muttered Valery. Natasha sighed. Only if Richard comes will I go. I had to hand it to Natasha. She knew who she wanted to keep her safe, and who she wanted, for that matter. Unfortunately, I had a girlfriend who not only had a stranglehold on my heart, but also had a say in what I did. I was confident that spending the night with another girl was not one of them. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw John raise his phone to his ear. He was calling his significant other, Juliana. Hey, babe, said John. Yes, we're fine. I have some things to tell you about our UFO hunt. What? Echo hasn't returned? I felt a chill run through my veins. Even Natasha turned her gaze in John's direction. Well, where did she go? Asked John as he stared at me. She went to meet with a reporter, and she said she'd be back soon, and that was 5 hours ago? John was repeating what Juliana was telling him for my benefit. Maybe her meeting was going overtime, said John. You don't think so? Because you tried to call her and she didn't answer? Okay, thank you for letting me know. I know you're concerned, but Richard and I will look for her. Yes, we will be careful. Bye. Valery turned his gaze towards me. What do you think? I didn't get to answer. Natasha answered for me. She has been kidnapped by the same people that kidnapped me. How do you know? Asked Valery. I remembered the lady talking and saying that she had a meeting set up to meet someone, replied Natasha. Who is this reporter? Asked John. Masha Ivanovna, and I know where she's holding Echo, I said. You do? Asked John. I do, and we need to go now. Natasha let go of my hand and smiled a warm smile. I know you love her. Go to her. I will go with Valery to Maxim's. Do not worry about me. I kissed Natasha's lips briefly. There was sadness in the kiss. I was in love with Echo, and I would not look into the possibilities for Natasha. I think she understood and was disappointed. Thank you for understanding, I muttered. Natasha looked at me with mixed emotions in her eyes as I started to rise from the table. Go, and be careful. I would like to see you again. Valery helped me out from the booth. Do not worry, I will keep Natasha safe. You have my word as your friend. I shook Valery's hand and then hugged him. I know you will. John and I left the cafe in search of the love of my life. It would be the second of 2 rescues, and probably the most dangerous of the 2.